Good evening on DataOps Poland meetup, and today Ole is our star, so I'm stop sharing the screen. Ole, stage is yours. Go.
Thank you for the introduction. Let me see if I can share. I'm pretty sure that when I share my slides, I can't see your comments.
Yeah.
For the case, I will read any comments if there will be any question.
Yeah. So far, I can see the comments still. Are you able to see my screen, like the entire
yes.
slide deck? Perfect.
Yes.
That's perfect.
If you can change that the full screen, because now we see the Google. Yeah, not sure. Oh, yeah.
Like this?
Now it's perfect. Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, it functions really well. I think this is better than the Microsoft alternative, actually. But anyway, that's another story. Well, thank you, Philip, for reaching out to me. I can't remember how long time it was, but it's some time ago. And thank you also for being an avid reader, or like a potential avid reader of my book. I know you've been following me quite intensely, so thank you for connecting more in depth and inviting me to your DataOps meetup here today. I'm really honored and excited to be here. So I will tell you a bit about my book, The Enterprise Data Catalog. I promised you, Philip, to go a little bit into detail about the mathematics of it. It's not a super mathematical book, but I definitely have a bit of mathematics in it. And since you're a technical crowd, you advised me to include that mathematics, and I have just today. So we'll touch upon that. But anyway, this is my book, The Enterprise Data Catalog. It's pretty hot off the press still. It was published half a year ago by O'Reilly. And it's called The Enterprise Data Catalog: Improve Data Discovery, Ensure Data Governance, and Enable Innovation. I don't know how much we will go into that, but these things are very attached. So improving data discovery ensures data governance, and that being done, you can enable innovation in a safe way. And the data catalog really helps you do that. My book is tech agnostic. I want to say this for the listeners. I have recently joined Synea, a data catalog that I also allowed to write the foreword of my book, because I really felt closely attached to this technology, but my book is completely tech agnostic. You can use it for whatever data catalog you have. I provide advice and opinions on all data catalogs out there, all types of data catalogs, and I discuss a lot of vendors in the book. So I want to talk about my book, and I also want to talk a bit about the data democracy that I have ignited a conversation on in the global data community. Philip, you mentioned Dharma just now, the DM book, Data Management Book of Knowledge, Body of Knowledge, and I follow them closely. I've interviewed several key people in that community from all over the world now. You'll be hearing them on my podcast. I also cite the DM book in my own book. And yeah, I am very, very attached to the data management community, because I think that is like the pragmatic alternative of all the sales jazz you can normally hear on social media and so forth, right? Anyway, a bit about me. Let's see here. My name is Ole. I'm a thought leader on data catalogs and enterprise data management. As I mentioned, I've written this book, The Enterprise Data Catalog. I have a PhD from the University of Copenhagen in Library Information Science. And then I also have industry experience, apologies, in data management and data mesh. I've worked as a specialist and as a leader and an architect. And I just recently left GN Stornor here in Copenhagen, where I live, Copenhagen, Denmark. GN stands for Great Northern. Wonderful company. I love being there. I got an invitation from Senea to join as their chief evangelist. And I didn't think twice. It's a wonderful company. I am surrounded by very, very intelligent people, and I really love the technology that we are proposing to companies. So it's an enormous pleasure to be part of Senea. That's me briefly. I want to say though also that my scientific field, library information science, really shaped the way I think about metadata repositories. If you remember Philip's wheel from just a second ago, metadata management is one of the core elements of the data management wheel that you showed, Philip. And I have very strong opinions on metadata repositories, and that really triggered me wanting to write the book, because I have a background that has really trained me in this area. So briefly about my book. I saw a lot of data catalogs that are very complex to use and that deliver little value. My inbox is still filled with people. I can see people in the call. I won't mention any names. I never mention names publicly, but I can see people in the call that have also reached out to me regarding this, saying that their data catalog implementations is either very, very complex or has failed. I often see that these technologies offer little value, and I felt very motivated to write my book on that background, because my educational background suggested to me why these implementations were going wrong, so to the degree they were, and why also I thought, quite frankly, that not all, but quite a lot of data catalogs were perhaps not structured in the most ideal way. I saw that from my practical experience, and that really made me want to write the book. So briefly about my book, it has 3 parts. You can organize, so the first part is organizing data that you can search for it. And that part really is about like the core learnings that I had as a student, as a PhD student, as a teacher at the university. I lectured for quite some years at the University of Copenhagen, taught thousands of students on how to organize data so that you can search for it. In courses such as knowledge and data organization, information retrieval, stuff like that. And these things are very, very linked. So the way you organize really defines how you can search data. And that is one of the key elements that I think are missing in data catalogs. It's tools that are conceived simply for the fact of wanting to catalog data in a lazy way. And doing that will not give any real value. You really need to cater for the searchability, for the data discoverability of the metadata you have in your catalog. Anyway, that's the first part of the book. The second part of the book is called Democratizing Data with the Data Catalog. And as you can see on my background, and generally in my writings on LinkedIn, I have been promoting this element more that I already described in my book. But we all know to a certain extent what data democratization is. Data is becoming more accessible to more and more people. That means that you can discover, access, and manage data. And these are the chapters in that part of my book. And that, again, stresses data governance bodies in companies to perform better, perhaps also adapt to a different mindset, understanding that data is not only the vehicle of executing a value chain, but it is something in itself, something that we could call the mesh. How do you enable that? How do you allow for that to thrive and live and be prosperous? That's really the key in success for data for companies in our era, right? And then I have a third part in my book called Envisioning the Future of Data Catalogs, which is really about what will happen next. How do I see the future of this technology? And no, I do not only see an evolution towards a chatbot that mediates generative artificial intelligence. That is definitely a component, but I do not see the future of data catalogs and data discovery in companies as only that. Not at all. I see it play a role, but that's not the entire future as I see it. My apologies. I just have to call. Okay, so that's my book. I have a couple of very high-level slides that I want to go through, and then I'll dive a little more into the mathematics, some mathematical elements. For this crowd, I'm not sure it'll be that complex to understand, but I want to show you some of the core mathematical elements at play in a metadata repository that is particularly focused on cataloging data. A data catalog, and I'll show you that in a minute. But a data catalog at its core really is this. It's in what's in the square, inside the square, the search engine and the database holding metadata from data sources. That's really what a data catalog is. It's a database containing metadata from various data sources, and on top of that, you need to have a search engine of some sorts. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the search engine is as performing across technologies, and that it doesn't really matter what kind of technology your data catalog is built on in order for it to work well. I disagree in that. I think it's very important for your data catalog to be powered by a knowledge graph. Other data catalogs will work, they will do their job, but if you want to have a really powerful data catalog, really capable of performing data discovery, then you need a graph-powered data catalog. And that is actually the equivalent of search engines on the web, right? They are graphs. Google is a graph. Okay, so outside of the data catalog sits a lot of data sources that you can see to your left, I guess. I guess it's showing the same way as I'm seeing it for you. These data sources have a lot of data in them. And what the data catalog is doing is that it's either receiving a stream or pulling data via metadata via connectors from these data sources. During the writing of my book, there was some very angry architect that meant that the push arrow should have a bidirectional shape. I mean, you can discuss details like that if you want, but the idea is that you should understand that you can either push or pull data into your data catalog using either streaming-based technology or connectors, standard connectors, and of course also APIs. Anyway, that's it. So a data catalog only exposes metadata. Contrary to search engines on the web, a data catalog is supposed to expose the data in your company. And by nature, everything on the web is open and accessible. So when you use a search engine on the web and you click on a search it, you're redirected to a homepage. We all know this. It's intuitive for us to do it. We don't think about it, but we have to keep in mind that when we are in an enterprise setting, we cannot do the same thing for various purposes, for various reasons. First of all, it's technically a little complicated, depending on the setup you have. It will take some time to actually access the data. But then also, we have to keep in mind that our data catalog is a metadata repository. This is a very simple illustration. If I should be completely honest, I'm not super happy about this illustration from my book, but it shows the idea, and I am very fond of the idea, that you can have data that at a certain level explains what a data source is about, and we consider this metadata. That could be the table name and column names, and not the actual values contained in these columns. That would be a way to distinguish between metadata and real data values, but it's always an interpretation of a data source that defines what is metadata and what is not. So you would not see the same data source reflected in the same way across various data catalogs, because what you consider metadata at a certain point will always be subject to an interpretation. So therefore, this is up for debate. I see a lot of good people joining this call. I want to say thank you to all of you joining this. I see a lot of people that I've been exchanging ideas with via LinkedIn. Thank you for joining. It's a real pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so the next one here is searching for versus searching in. Also a very simple slide, but it goes to illustrate. I think that is one of the things that you should keep in mind. That a data catalog is so just apologies here, Philip. I'm getting a lot of notations about people wanting to joining the call, but I am not supposed to let anyone in, right? You can do that for me, right?
Yeah. This is automatic process, so don't need to worry. But we cannot switch this sound off.
No, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just that I wouldn't want to keep people out. That's all. But thank you. I'm happy to know that they can join automatically. Searching for versus searching in is this distinction that I found out was very important to repeat and repeat and repeat. It looks extremely simple, and it really is. But data discovery, searching data, is something that for the data community in general is perceived as something that you do inside data sources. It's a data scientist looking for patterns in a big data set, trying to interpret a hypothesis into some kind of database query language and then test it up against a big data set to find patterns and do modifications and everything data scientists do, right? And that is completely what data discovery is and should be about. But there is also an earlier part of data discovery where you're searching for data. And that's exactly what you do in data catalog. You're not searching in data sources. As we just saw, there are no actual values in the data catalog at data level. It's only at the metadata level. So you're doing something else in the data catalog. And what you're doing is that you're searching for the data sources wherein you will search in data. So you're searching for data in a data catalog. You're searching for the most interesting Synapse instance with the most interesting data inside them. And then once you have found that, then you can move on and search in that data. And the reason why I mentioned this is because many data catalogs have not focused enough on the practice of searching for data. That is something that I have been trained in extensively during my academic studies, during my own research, during my teaching. I have, of course, also improved myself, but I've also taught a lot of students how to do this in metadata repositories. And I saw a lot of, because data catalogs are conceived by technologists, they have this blind spot that is that you could call the end user, if I were to be a little provocative. Because many data catalogs, they sort of take for granted that searching for data is something that is so simple that everyone will master it, and that it poses no technological difficulty to deliver on that premise. But the fact of the matter is that most data catalogs, they fail exactly because of this. They fail because searching for data is not intuitive enough, it is not technologically functional enough, meaning that they never provide any value, because all the adjacent capabilities that you have sitting around that main capability that is searching for data. So such as like column-based data lineage or like assessment of privacy in data sets and so on. All these, I dare say, adjacent or even ephemeral features that they might change if RFPs tend to change or Gartner's assessment tend to change. They don't really deliver any value if the core capability doesn't deliver any value. So data catalog should focus a lot more on the capability of searching for data. And I made this distinction because the tech community in general is very, very knowledgeable about the difficulty of searching in data. Data scientist takes up a lot of space in the data community. But there is actually also something called an information scientist, and that's my background. And we have been trained in metadata repositories, making these work. And there is a causality here. If what people like me, information scientists, if what we do not work, then data scientists and what they do not work. Because then you have this very, very classic situation where you have a very, very highly paid data scientist sitting and doing analysis on whatever data they could find, which happens to be like the colleagues with that they share office space with, or whoever they meet in the canteen having lunch, or whatever. Like half a set data sources that they do analysis on, and not the best data sources. Because the best data sources, they are hidden from them. They cannot find them because the data catalog and whatever people like me have been doing has not been prioritized by the organization. So that is why this distinction is so important. You will waste a lot of money. And so if you don't take this distinction into consideration, you can also think of it like this. I mean, Joe Rees and Matt Hughesly, they have been very, very successful in promoting the idea of data engineering and the fundamentals of data engineering, which really is the prerequisite for data scientists at a stack level, right? If you want to have functional pipelines and all the various components that takes a modern data stack, I dislike that expression, but if you want to have a modern data stack, then you need to have an understanding of the fundamentals of data engineering, and without that, you will not have data scientists being capable of doing their job. And that's pretty much the same thing here, just for metadata. If you do not have a functional data catalog, well-functioning data catalog where you can search for data, then you will never be able to really search in data. That's just the causality of it. And so searching for versus searching in can also be seen at a spectrum of search, going from very easy to very difficult, with searching for data as the prerequisite, where you search either in natural language, you perform simple searches, or complex searches where you combine stuff with Boolean operators. And then once you have your data set, searching in data becomes complex, for sure, when you do database query language searches in data sets. So search happens on a spectrum, and we need to take that into consideration also for data catalogs in particular. I'll have some water just a sec. I promised you guys some mathematics. Where is it? Okay, so here it is. Yeah, so this is actually what I dare say the most important. I'll get back to the frequency. I was supposed to leave that out, but it's been a busy day. Apologies. It'll be discussed more on the next slide. Well, on this slide, we'll discuss what's called the confusion matrix. The confusion matrix is what you see here. In my book, I explain it like going to the doctor. If you go to the doctor and you have, let's say you have some red surface on your hand and you're afraid it's eczema, right? Your doctor can either say, you ask your doctor, is it eczema or not? And then your doctor can say, well, it is eczema or it's not eczema. But But you have to keep in mind that the doctor may be wrong. So the doctor can say, no, this is not eczema, but in fact it is. Or the doctor could say the other way around. As I just said, it's been a long day. So the doctor could say, yes, this is eczema, but be wrong and say, but be wrong and actually it's not eczema. So when you go to the doctor and you're getting a diagnosis, you think that you can either get a yes or no. You think you can get two answers, but in fact you can get 4 answers. And that is what this matrix represents. It represents the true positives and the false positives and the false negatives and the true negatives. And the reason why I mention it here is because just like going to the doctor, when you search in a search engine or a data catalog, everything, every single hit, everything you do in a data catalog can be placed in the confusion matrix. The confusion matrix is the most key element to understand the data catalog, because you can have in your search results, you can have true positives and false positives, but there will also be false negatives. These are the relevance hits that you do not find in your search result. And there are also some false positives, meaning there are search results that you have in your search result that you shouldn't have had because they are not relevant. So the confusion matrix for search engines, for data catalogs, are based on relevance, not on diagnosis of medical conditions, of course, but on relevance. So is this relevant? Is this search hit relevant? Every time we search, every single time you search on Google, the confusion matrix for search hits is at play. Is this relevant or is this not relevant? And from that, you can derive 2 formulas. Well, you can derive an entire book of formulas, to be honest. And I considered including some more in the book, but I thought it wasn't relevant because my book is not for people that want to build data catalogs. It's for people that want to understand how it works. And so therefore I hesitated a bit because it's of course cool to demonstrate a lot of complex formulas in a book. Who wouldn't want to do that? But it's not the point here. The point is about what makes sense for you guys as readers. And it wouldn't make any sense to include a lot of formulas at a more complex level than these 2. Again, disregard frequency. I'll come back to that one on the next slide. But precision and recall really is about aiming for either one perfect hit on top of your search results. That's your Google-ish kind of feeling when you type in pizza, for example. You want the best pizza nearest to where you are. You want that search hit on top to be the open fireplace pizzeria with true Italians as chefs making sourdough pizzas, like perfect pizza. You want that search hit to be, and it has to be very, very close to where you live. That's the #1 search hit that you're looking for. That's a precise hit. But you're not interested in the best 100 pizzerias closest to where you live. It doesn't matter because you just need one precise hit. So that's precision, and you can tailor your machine and the way you search to deliver on precision. But that depends on you taking an active stance in the information and data architecture of your technology. Now you can also focus on recall, and recall is the exact opposite of actually. That is the 100 best pizzerias closest to where you live, for example. It's an extensive or exhaustive search result that takes in a lot of potentially relevant search hits at the expense of precision, because these 2 elements, they are mutually exclusive. If you're going for recall, you will get low precision. If you're going for precision, you're getting low recall. So you can't have both. It's either or all the time. And ideally, both the technology that the data catalog that you're using can cater for both, and also the way you have contributed with the right level of metadata inside the data catalog will cater for both. Meaning that you can do either very exhaustive searches or you can do very small, fast, precise searches, happening either for the precise one like this at once, or the recall may be in several instantiations, and you may change between browsing and adding stuff, clicking your way around. It'll be a longer travel inside the metadata universe of your data catalog. That was a bit of mathematics. And so I want to do two things now. I want to talk a little bit about data democracy, and then I also want to leave some time for questions if people want to have more like a Q&A kind of setting. Philip, we discussed this prior to the meeting. Do you think that is a good idea still, to leave some time for questions in the end?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I'll talk about the data democracy for 5-10 minutes, and then we'll open for questions, right? So, oh yeah, I forgot the frequency part. I want to briefly touch upon these because, Philip, you were eager to hear me talk about some mathematical details. So let me also talk about frequency, or Zipf's law, as it is called. It's about the frequency of words, and it's not really a law. And that's also why, I mean, we can call it mathematics, of course, but I call it search mechanics in my book because it's not exact science. It is this blend of exact science and language that I really love, that metadata management and information science is all about. And you can't approach it more than that, but I just love that clash between language and logic and mathematics. And if you add technology, then I'm personally that's really the area of study that makes me geek out the most. I'm very, very fond of that. But Zipf's law is a law that states that the frequency of words are more or less inversely proportional with their rank, meaning that like the most important language, the most important word in English is the next one, I believe, is a or it. I can't actually remember it, but its frequency is exponentially higher, and then it fades. The reason why I has put the Zipf's law into this context is that information science has proved that this is also at play, very obviously, at the metadata level. And what that means is that the frequency of words, unfortunately, if we crawl data sources, we will get more and more data sources that uses the same words in different contexts. Words I mentioned here in the example is like efficiency, result, and score. These words, if they are occurring in column names or in BI reports and so forth, they will have more and more different meanings the more data sources we crawl. So Zipf's law is at play in a data catalog in a way that makes it increasingly difficult to search a data catalog the more you crawl. And the point here about this is that you have to cater for that by using a business glossary or several business glossaries and even data dictionaries. Those are two different things. So that you explain what your data sources is about, and that is not necessarily human activity. You can base that on artificial intelligence, at least to a certain extent. That's completely doable. So I'm not arguing for a lot of people doing a lot of typing. That's not it. But you just have to keep in mind that the more data you crawl, the less you can rely on the crawling itself for data to be discoverable. You can definitely argue that you have cataloged your data. No problem, I agree in that, but you have not made it discoverable. You have made it less discoverable by crawling more and more data. So keep Zipf's law in mind when you organize and expand your data catalog. Yeah, and this is where it really gets outside of the realm of true mathematics. It's a formula for serendipity that I found, and I love it, but it's definitely not exact science. But it tells a lot about the evolution of science, which is really serendipitous. The fact that Newton saw an apple falling from a tree gave him a scientific revolution, a scientific epiphany, I should say, that is a combination of these factors. He had a lot of experience. He had also a lot of insights, and then he was lucky, and things were to a certain extent a coincidence. But this is also a play, or should be at play, when you search for data, meaning that we should be able to find things that surprises us, that are very relevant, but in a surprising way. Things we were not looking for or searching for, but that nevertheless, once we find them, has a lot of relevance and importance and meaning to us. And so you can cater for that in your data catalog. You can build in features that cater for that in the way you rank search it, in the way you can browse, in the way you display how other people have searched for what inside the data catalog. Serendipity is something that you should really take very seriously, because it will allow for more people to use more data actively. Okay, I keep talking. I should skip some slides here and then talk a little bit about data democracy. Let me see. The way I define a data democracy is the fact that anyone can find anything from anywhere at any time. This is my definition of a data democracy. And that also, of course, has a lot of limitations built into it, in the sense that I'm talking at a metadata level here. And even though I'm talking at a metadata level, there will be certain things that not everyone should be allowed to see. Then there is a technical dimension underneath that talks about accessing data that is also very difficult. So, or can be very difficult, depending on your setup, right? So for me, a data democracy is a target state that is really something that we are accelerating towards, but also in an unconscious way, because data is, or how to say, technology is becoming democratized these years. More and more people can buy technologies without working directly in the IT department of a company. We all know this. All it takes to be an IT worker today is a credit card, right? We can all buy SaaS solutions and they will be well performing. But the fact that IT is becoming democratized both accelerates and challenges a data democracy. It accelerates it because more and more people really can do more and more stuff with more and more data, right? But at the same time, it's also creating these data silos where less and less people are capable of finding all data sources from across the company in a smooth and efficient way, because we're actually creating something very old with something very new, and that is, we're creating data silos with SaaS solutions that have not been democratized outside of the team or the business unit working with that specific solution. So these are my thoughts on data democracy. I am publishing these in an ebook that I'm writing for Senea, and I hope you will subscribe and discuss these with me, particularly on LinkedIn. I need to also be more on Mastodon. I have a Mastodon profile as well. And finally, I just want to share my final slide about data democracy is that it's really a repetition of what happened 20 years ago on the web. And I am very, very fond of Peter Morville's books. I really, really like his writings. Ambient findability for me is a little bit of a Bible, or prophecy, I should call it, in the sense that he is one of the first that you have to remember this is prior to the iPhone, right? In 2005. And he kind of foresees this reality where everyone can find anyone or anything from anywhere at any time. And that is what I have reinterpreted into an enterprise setting, because I honestly believe that we are seeing the same things now. And it's a combination of large language models, data catalogs, and data mesh as the infrastructure component, you can say, or scalable data architectures that really constitute the same key components that will deliver the same findability in companies that you saw emerge on the web 20 years ago or so, right? So that's my thoughts on data democracy. Philip, I think we should open for questions. We have only 10 minutes left, I guess.
Yep, definitely. Thank you very much, Ola.
Thank you.
I don't see any questions, but if anyone has anything, you can unmute yourself and go on. I think we have plenty of time, so no need to hurry.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can definitely just talk a bit more if people just came for the listening, but you're also welcome to chat, chip in with some questions. Yes, Andrea?
Great talk. I have a question. I basically agree with you that search is very important in the data catalog, especially when you are building a data environment that is distributed, like in a data mesh. I just wonder, in your opinion, to make the data discoverable, it's something that is on the data catalog alone, so it's something just related to scraping and to getting information around, and then apply some intelligent machine learning algorithm to index all the metadata information, or there should be also ownership in the different teams to provide good metadata, curated metadata to the central catalog in a proactive way in order to make their product more searchable, more easy to be found into the architecture. And as an add-on for this question, we know that nowadays modern search engine usually go beyond information retrieval, just information retrieval. No, they are built also on PageRank, for example, or are leveraging some knowledge graph to improve search. And what is your idea on improving search and applying semantics using knowledge graph to improve the search? So two questions. Who have the responsibility to provide good metadata? Is something that can be just automatized at the center, or also the different product teams should be involved, and the role of knowledge graph or a technique like PageRank can have in improving the search result within the catalog?
Well, thank you for these questions, Andrea, and I hope we get the chance to chat in Bologna. Will you be joining the Dama EMEA conference in Bologna in November? I hope so.
I don't know. I will be here in Italian for the international conference in December. That's for sure. I don't think that I can make it to be in Poland. But anyway, we will find a way to chat, not only virtually.
Yes, definitely. But for the audience in general, let me provide an answer. I believe first of all, I don't see any golden solution to create perfect setup for your data catalog. I think there are several different setups. I discuss 3 in my book that are like very, very high level distinction between centralized and decentralized, and then a mix in the middle. But one thing is certain, and that is that you cannot rely on a central team defining the data pertaining to various domains. You will need the business and the various domains included in building and solidifying a data catalog. That's for sure. Secondly, I think it is becoming a realization for a big part of the data community that these technologies should ideally be powered by knowledge graphs. Secondly, they could be supported in various ways by knowledge graphs from the outside. But as you very correctly point towards, knowledge graphs are performing something. It hurts me a little bit on a personal level, hearing you making the distinction between information retrieval and the power or the capacity of a knowledge graph. I see these two very interlinked, but that is just my personal idiosyncrasies. But I definitely understand what you mean, like a mechanistic information retrieval capability delivered by something else or something more relatively more primitive than a knowledge graph, and then more refined, more powerful and more precise search or data discovery capacity delivered by a graph. And I definitely see that as something that I don't see why you should exclude that capability in your knowledge, in your data catalog. I mean, search engines for the web are running on it, and you can empirically prove that they deliver better data discoverability at a technical level for data catalogs. So why on earth would you just exclude it? I agree.
Okay. Another question, because you are an expert on data catalog. In your opinion, why there are so many data catalog vendors right now? It's a success of the space, or there is some problem here?
Yeah, that was a bit of a background noise there, Andrea. But if I caught your question correctly, why are there so many players in the data catalog space?
Yes, exactly.
I think I think we are entering a time where we can definitely agree that there are too many. It is one of the key components to the modern success of or the success of modern cloud-based companies, right? If you look at the Netflixes and Googles and Amazons of the world, all these companies have internal data catalogs, and they are very, very, very important for the success of these companies, right? So I think that the value proposition, or the promise at least, for data catalogs is quite immense. I also think that at least to a certain extent, the technologies weren't as performing as they should have been in this category, and that means that a lot of new players has joined the game, simply because you can build these technologies in a more efficient way. But I don't want to mention any specific vendors. I don't. That's not what
It was that one because it's very usual. I've been last week in Big Data London, and there were vendors of data catalogs basically everywhere. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. And I will please reach out on LinkedIn, Andrea. I've been following you for some time now. I would love some more ideas.
Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If there aren't any other questions, I think, Philip, that we should call it a day. The time has.
Yeah, there is one more.
Okay.
Piotr is asking if do you differentiate data democracy versus data democratization?
Yes. Oh, that's a nice one. Thank you, Piotr. Yeah, I do. and I do because I think data democratization is something that we cannot control ourselves. That's the technological evolution that has been ignited by modern, cloud computing in all aspects, but it's simply the acceleration of technologies and in parallel an expansion of who is capable of consuming these technologies. That is the data democratization. And in order to control that process, you need data management, and you certainly need data governance. You need a very solid IT setup. You need enterprise architecture reinterpreted to something that is capable of grasping that the business is doing that. I mean, you can have enterprise architects sitting in an ivory tower saying you cannot do this, but the business will do it anyway. And I've been part of such a team that managed that and that was capable of engaging with the business instead of just making rules that the business would respect. That was really fun. I learned a lot from that. But data democracy, as I see it, is actually something that I have defined a part of it. I haven't defined everything in a data democracy, and I say that very openly. I am just very concerned if we don't define the target state of where we are going, what this will look like in 5-10 years from now. I think that many data technology vendors will fail. I think a lot of companies will create an enormous amount of technological debt, and I think they will spend an enormous amount of money doing so. And so that's why I'm thinking about data democracy, what that really is, the target state of data democratization. And that is something that we get to define in the data community if we want. And that is why I am making the distinction and why I'm so occupied by data democracy.
I think this might be a great subject for DMBOK version 3, which is still awaiting for a few years.
Yeah. I know the people writing, certain people engaged in writing the 3rd edition of the DAMA DMBOK. I think it's something that you should definitely give some more thought. Right. I think, Piotr, you have a question. What do you call them? Must-have? Yeah, no worries, Piotr. What do you call the must-have in democracy, which is the duty to contribute, like taxes? Yeah, that's the beauty of it. But Piotr, I think time is running out. But I definitely want to discuss more. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And you can also subscribe to my podcast if you want to have more of these debates. But there is definitely a governance side of a data democracy. You have rights, you have duties in a data democracy. So there are many things at play here. And we shouldn't definitely not think of a data democracy as something where we all should have an understanding and an authority as a minister or in a real democracy, right? We shouldn't be judges either with the authority to judge other people by interpreting laws. That's not what a democracy is about. But we all have rights and duties, and that is something that I'm looking very closely at, and I'm describing these elements in my ebook. So you're welcome to reach out if you have any questions. I would also like to go more into depth about this, but time is running out.